We're trying to advertise a roundtable this Thursday at 7:30. Where
234.
Duck 234, where we want to bring people out, voice their opinions on whether it's necessary, whether it's something that the students want to see on campus, and whether the DAC, the Diversity Affairs Council, is a necessary step towards truly creating a diverse campus.
So, diversity on the WashU campus.
How do you define diversity? I mean, is diversity how many different kinds of students we have, or how those students are spread out among the campus?
I think diversity can be pretty broad. We usually jump to ethnic or racial, cultural, but there's also, there's religious, there's socioeconomic, there's ways of thinking and experiences and all of that.
Sometimes we can get so caught up in having diversity just being a word for ethnicity.
But for me, when I think of diversity, I think of people who think differently or who have had different experiences.
Diversity is kind of how available it is for people to get to know each other.
Exposed to people who are different than you, not necessarily just like the color of their skin or how they look or where they come from, but that have different ideas than you, have different amounts of money than you do. There's all kinds of diversity, and I think it's important that we know about all of it.
And so I think really pushing for that so that we can know what does diversity mean and what kind of diversity do we want to see on campus would really help us.
So, in my experience, campus is, in general, a lot more diverse than, I guess, what I'm used to.
Diversity is standing pretty well.
I feel like we do a great job here including people.
I don't think it's necessary, but it's good.
I think this campus is a very diverse campus, racially, ethnically, religiously, socioeconomically, maybe not as sexually diverse as I think it could be.
Like kind of a glaring groups of people missing. Obviously, like socioeconomically, WashU is not nearly as diverse as I was hoping it would be. Also, the lack of like Latin students.
Yeah, there's like no
right, like it's kind of glaring. It's kind of obvious.
I think that there's honestly not that much diversity in terms of like race and all the obvious factors. I think the way that we're most diverse is in terms of like where we're from in the country, and the fact that we have like a lot of diversity of experience, but not necessarily like race, ethnicity, religion, all of that.
I think definitely more can be done.
I see a lot of different groups, but mainly they mingle.
They're there but separate, so like they're not coming together.
I think that it's our responsibility to take it upon ourselves to mix within this within the melting pot that we're in.
I think the problem is that a lot of times students can't really benefit from it because you see a lot of self-segregation, especially in like terms of racial groups.
While it is true that these people self-segregate, you can, like Michael said, you can find a diverse experience if you're looking for it.
And I think it should be more of a buzzword, I guess. I think that it needs to be brought up more often than it has been. I agree.
I think it's sort of almost overused a lot of times. You just kind of throw diversity around in a lot of places and just make that our like cause for things. And I just feel like it's kind of not maybe well understood term.
Well, when someone now hears the word diversity, I would argue there's a pretty significant probability that they're just going to turn their ears off, because in their mind they're like, I've heard so much about diversity, I know about diversity, I try to be diverse with my friends and stuff. So it's almost a challenge to like, how can we make this more relevant? How do we really reach people and make them more aware that there still is work to be done?
It's a bigger school, whatever, like if you say something like negative about diversity in terms of the way it's constructed here or whatever, people sort of take offense more easily, and I think that's why it's not discussed as much.
They talk about that and they use the word and it doesn't always really carry meaning to people, and I feel as though it's, in theory, it means a lot to people, and so that's why people continue to use it. But in terms of what's actually happening, I feel as though there are a lot of ways in which we're not really jumping outside of the box. We're not really challenging our meaning of diversity because that requires a lot of effort.
I think there's definitely a concerted effort to increase diversity, but I don't know just how much it actually, comes to fruition.
People talk about wanting to be able to branch out, but don't actually move to do it. And I think that if that movement was there, it'd definitely be accepted by all the multicultural groups.
I don't think there's like
one set thing that you can do, and all of a sudden we go from not diverse to diverse. But I think there's definitely ways that you can always try to improve it. And you can always try to improve it because, I mean, it's never going to be perfect.
Honestly, it's really up to the student body to do that. There's really administratively nothing that can be done because ultimately students are the ones that decide who they want to associate with.
Because there are a lot of like individual efforts toward diversity. I really love like RCE, Connect 4, all that stuff's really great. But I think something broad that makes it immediately relatable and relevant to all students, because all students, you know, their money goes to SU. All students.
I think at WashU we're really good at talking, and I think that sort of dialogue definitely needs to happen. But where student union needs to step up and where the student body needs to step up is turning that discussion into action and actual administrative or policy changes in the greater WashU community.
As long as that diversity committee included the voices of the different student groups.
That it has to be something, instead of about like certain groups' rights, it should be more about like actually creating diversity among all different groups and not sort of putting one group ahead of another.
I think that would definitely be a positive step forward because they can be one body that can address these things and just focus specifically on these, whereas other bodies within student union are just around campus try and address these issues, but there's never a direct, like a central location for it. And I think if they kind of pull people from various sides of campus activities and just student union in general, you can kind of envelop everyone.
Really implement programs that are going to draw not necessarily the people that are already passionate about diversity, but the people that aren't necessarily they don't think about that on a daily basis. And I think that's the real challenge that an organization like the DAC would face. Not to say it's insurmountable, but it's definitely a huge challenge.